Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. The energetic storm has begun and it may be about to get stronger. We are right now in the midst of a coronal hole high-speed stream impact, meaning some very high velocity solar wind right now is sweeping by planet Earth, triggering a G1 minor geomagnetic storm. So there are magnetic fluctuations that are occurring across our planet, primarily concentrated and strongest in the polar regions, and right as this coronal hole high-speed stream hit us, we had a magnitude 6.7 earthquake pop off in Japan, where there's been a tremendous amount of earthquake activity over the past few months. We had the 6.4, 6.8 in November, magnitude 7.6 in December, and then the strongest earthquake up until today, recently, the magnitude 7.5 on April 20th of this year, 2026. And in fact, today, the past 24 hours, we've not only had the magnitude 6.7 that hit Japan, but right before that, we had a magnitude 6.2 strike Indonesia. And that was previously the strongest earthquake since April 20th. So within 24 hours, right in the forecasted time window of May 13th to the 15th, for this critical energy convergence, we've had two very strong earthquakes, and we are now in this G1 geomagnetic storm. We also had a pretty big disturbance from this sunspot right here, Earth facing. Now, this did not fully launch out. See that huge puff of plasma? That got reabsorbed back in. We don't see it show up clearly on the coronagraph, but we do have this sunspot, which has blasted off X-class flares and M-class flares in its lifetime thus far, exactly Earth center and direct in the strike zone. So we could see some big activity from this over the next 24 or 48 hours. It's certainly a heightened probability. It's not guaranteed to happen, but it's more likely to happen because of this eruptive history. And look, we just saw some activity there. We had this plasma filament. You can see it right here. See this plasma filament? You'll see that release, but there wasn't enough momentum, I guess. So the electromagnetic force wasn't such to actually launch it fully out into space. Instead, it got reabsorbed back into the sun. This is all occurring while we have the superior conjunction of Mercury. So Mercury just passed behind the sun, made a perfect alignment with the Earth. And in fact, it was a Ceres Mercury, Sun, Earth alignment. And we have the new moon tomorrow, May 16th. So we are in a classic energy convergence. We're already seeing the effects of this geostorm here on Earth with G1 geomagnetic conditions and heightened earthquake activity with the magnitude 6.2 and 6.7 earthquakes that popped off in the past 24 hours. So we're going to cover that and much more in today's video. Here we have our USGS latest earthquakes map set for the past 24 hours, magnitude 4.5 earthquakes and greater. And you'll notice this 6.7 right here that popped off in Japan, right in the area where we've been having a lot of high magnitude activity going back to last year. So this whole zone right here has been rupturing with these magnitude 6 and magnitude 7 earthquakes. And of course, back in 2011, March 11th, we had the magnitude 9.1 right in this region. That's a big earthquake, one of the strongest on record. But now we're seeing activity to the north where there are some distinct geologic blocks that have yet to rupture and slip. And the Japanese are watching that very closely. And there is a potential for a magnitude 8 plus megaquake to occur in this region at any time. Now, we saw activity in Japan on November with a 6.4 and 6.8 double burst. And then also in December with a magnitude 7.6, there was also a follow-up aftershock of magnitude 6.7. And then we had the 7.5 on the 20th of April this year. So there's a little break in between these bursts of seismic activity around Japan. And now we just saw a 6.7. So not a magnitude 7, but still clearly a distinct jump in earthquake activity for Japan. This follows up after the magnitude 8.8 megaquake that occurred here end of July 2025. So that's a huge amount of energy. The strongest one here being that magnitude 7.6 in December or the 7.5 April 20th. You add all the magnitudes together, they don't even equal up to magnitude 8. And the way earthquake energy scales is that going from a 7.5, let's say, to an 8.5 is 32 times more energy released. So if we're looking at this in terms of it being an equation of Japan needing to release an equivalent amount of energy as Kamchatka, which is not necessarily something that needs to happen, but that could be the case, then what we've been having here with the magnitude 7s and 6s is not sufficient to have fully ruptured and release that energy. It's actually well behind, being only maybe like 3% the energy needed, something like that. So we've had this 6.7 strike Japan just about 24 hours before that. We'll see also on here our 6.2 Indonesia. Of course, we've been having a lot of activity recently in the Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, Papua New Guinea. Japan's Sakurajima volcano has been very active, had its first pyroclastic flow in 8 years, according to Japanese authorities. Mount Dukono has been very active in Indonesia. It just blasted off another big volcanic ash plume going up. We've had Mayon volcano in the Philippines be very active. And then we even have an undersea volcano in the Bismarck Sea that's been blasting off ash, even though it's submerged 1.3 kilometers below the surface at its highest extent. This is like a fissure volcano. It's blasting ash up 10,000 feet. So that's remarkable when you think about how much pressure is created by 1.3 kilometers of water, right? And to have enough force to blast through that and still go pretty far up in the atmosphere is incredible. We just saw episode 47 of Kilauea Volcano on the Big Island, Hawaii come to an end. That occurred exactly yesterday when we had this superior conjunction of Mercury, which is interesting timing. And this is all speaking to the fact that there is a lot of energy right now in the Western Pacific, and the hot spot here also being a bit of a barometer for just overall energy flow coming up from deeper in the Earth, because Hawaii is the largest hotspot on the planet, and there's extensive magma plumbing, you could call it, going from Hawaii down into the mantle. So tons of activity over here. We could see bigger earthquakes as a result of this coronal hole high-speed stream impact. It's certainly possible this could be the first of a wave. It's not necessarily guaranteed, but here we have our global seismic activity past 90 days provided by Volcano Discovery, linked in the video description. Here we see this seismic burst that we had back in March. So this is an example of where you could start to get these magnitude 6s and then you get magnitude 7s as well. We had 3 magnitude 7s here, 7.5 Tonga, 7.3 Vanuatu, 7.4 Indonesia. Okay, so right now we're seeing Japan and Indonesia with the 2 strongest earthquakes going back to April last year. Here is our magnitude 7.5 Japan. Here's our 6.7 Japan right there. So you see this very clear demarcation between these. And we actually had pretty quiet activity in between all these different examples. It's been very quiet in terms of earthquake activity for the past 25, 26, 28 days or so. As you can see, we never even went above a cumulative magnitude of 6.2 globally during this time frame. So it was quite odd. This clearly is a signal point that stands above the threshold noise and is perfectly lined with this coronal hole high-speed stream. So that's worth noting. Here we see the magnetic fluctuations from this G1 geomagnetic storm that we are currently in. So this has begun, and you see that most of the magnetic fluctuations are concentrated in the polar regions. Here's our scale bar, but you do of course see that there is enhanced magnetic flux across the entire planet. And there's these pulses and rhythms to it. So we're seeing this come in right now. We're likely to have a geomagnetic storm for the next 24 hours or so at active to G1 to maybe G2 levels. That could very well increase further. We see our real-time solar wind right here. This is for the past 54 days. And you can see these coronal hole high-speed stream impacts come in. They structure the solar wind. It's not homogeneous. The wind is not always blowing the same all day, every day, nonstop. It varies and changes. So here we see that. And here's our most recent high-speed stream impact right there. You see that the magnetic field strength of the solar wind is going up. We see that now we're about 648 kilometers per second in terms of the speed, the velocity, and density has yet to drop down significantly, but it should start to do so. We switch it to our 3-day view. We can see this come in very nicely. And let me show you exactly when that earthquake occurred in Japan, the 6.7. That was at 11:22 Universal Time today, the 15th of May. So we can get that lined up as 1122. So here's our line, and you see that it's right when this high-speed stream started to come in quite strongly. It wasn't down here at these low levels. It was like clearly now we're in that high-speed stream. It's active. We're about to get some geomagnetic activity. This actually being responsible right here for this G1 storm. And now our solar wind strength is hovering in this 10 to 15 range. And this high-speed stream is getting faster and faster and faster. So we could get more big earthquake activity as a result of this coronal hole. I'll show you it again one more time because this coronal hole has been active for many rotations now. Here we can see the past 8 rotations that it's had going all the way back to October of 2025. So this is a long-lived structure, and the idea with these coronal holes being able to influence earthquake activity is that they load the earth with energy, and these faults, of course, it's all plate tectonics. So you have normal plate tectonics accumulating strain on faults, and eventually they rupture. But the trigger mechanism seems to be often these coronal holes because they provide just a bit more energy than normal, and they cause it to rupture. There's also changes to the near-Earth space environment. The density often drops, or when you have that high velocity solar wind come in, it compresses Earth's magnetic field in unique ways. And we know that there are connections between the solar wind, the upper atmosphere, the ionosphere, and more. So this is all very, very active right now. And I really don't know why people think that the sun has such a small influence on the Earth. Obviously it has a big influence. We can go to spaceweather.com today, and they have an article here on Super El Nino. And this is because the El Nino forecasts right now are very, very strong, and it looks like we're going to have a very strong El Nino. Just a couple weeks ago, people were saying a super El Nino is not a real term, and now everyone's using it, and I guess it's actually an official term. So you see how fickle people are. But regardless, this is forecasted to happen, not a super, but an El Nino is forecasted to happen by some solar researchers based off of a magnetic termination event that occurs on the sun. This occurs with every solar cycle, and based on their research, every terminator event since the 1960s has coincided with the flip from El Nino to La Nina. So their work correctly predicted the onset of a triple dip La Nina in 2020 and revealed an unexpected connection between the sun and the ENSO, or the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So here's an example, and research backing it up, showing the connection that the sun has with and its magnetic properties, right? The solar cycle and the magnetic field of the sun, its flip and everything, with some of the largest atmospheric modulation cycles that exist here on Earth. So obviously the sun influences climate with its light radiation, total solar radiance, all this stuff, but it has more of an effect on our weather than most people realize, and more people are coming around to this. You simply just need to do the research to learn about it, and props to spaceweather.com for highlighting this connection today. And here we have our C2 coronagraph view, so we can see the solar wind and solar storm outflows, things of this nature, but also we can see some of the planets. Notably, we have Mercury right now in view close to the sun because it just performed its Cazimi. So that's Mercury right there, and it came in like this. Mercury has a pretty high inclination in its orbit, so it could have done its superior conjunction or an inferior conjunction in between the sun and the Earth, well above or below the ecliptic plane. This one, though, came in specifically right along the ecliptic plane like this, and now it is traveling ahead of the sun, and so Mercury will appear as an evening star fairly quickly. It's the fastest moving planet. Of course, we're also moving our orbit to help make these perspectives possible, but right now we have Venus as an evening star, we have Jupiter as an evening star, and soon we will have Mercury as an evening star as well. We have the new moon tomorrow, and then we have some interesting alignments with that waxing crescent moon in the days ahead. Let's check it out. Here we have our sky mapping software, Stellarium. You can download this yourself if you'd like to play around with this. I highly recommend you do so. And we're just looking at it as it is right now as I'm filming this. And so it's the sun is out, the sun is shining, but we can go forward here to around sunset. Let's put it right about here. And let's also switch off our atmosphere so we can better see what's happening. Now, if I actually just go back a little bit, you'll see there's the sun right here. We have Mercury right nearby. You'll notice the star cluster of the Pleiades right here. So we're about to get a Sun-Pleiades alignment, and we also have Uranus there. So we are coming up on our annual conjunction, solar conjunction of Uranus. So we do have a Uranus cazimi coming up. That, of course, is a superior conjunction. Every planet outside the orbit of Earth only does superior conjunctions with the sun. That is a powerful energetic moment, and it's on the Pleiades. So keep that in mind. That's coming up in just about a week or so. Now, if we move over here, we'll see Venus, and we will also see Jupiter. Let me turn back on the atmosphere, and let's actually progress this forward so you can see really what it looks like when the sun goes down. Here we see it, and then Venus starts to shine very brightly as an evening star. Jupiter appears. You'll also see Castor and Pollux very nicely. They're very bright. You'll have Sirius there off to the left, close to the horizon. So there's this really nice kind of triangle right now that exists. And as we go forward, we will see the moon come in. Let's go back just a little bit. Here we see our new moon. See the moon right there? There's our new moon. If you go forward one more day to the 17th, we will see that the moon will be conjunct Venus, effectively. Maybe I need to go forward to the 18th. On the 18th, we have the waxing crescent moon, barely illuminated. I think it's going to be like 7% illuminated. I think we can find out here maybe by actually looking at the detail there. Yeah, 7.4% illumination, conjunct Venus. And then if we go forward, we go and see that it'll be conjunct Jupiter in between the 19th and the 20th, around this time frame. So we have this really nice progression where we'll have a barely illuminated moon right next to the third brightest object in our sky, which is Venus, and then it'll carry on and conjunct Jupiter. And if we go back, by the way, to this superior conjunction that we just had with Mercury, let's check this out again, and I'll have to turn off the atmosphere so we can see it. Here we see Mercury, there's the sun. This is the superior conjunction. Let's type in Ceres, our favorite dwarf planet in the asteroid belt. And it should be this guy right there. There we see it. We see this Mercury-Sun Ceres conjunction. So this is simultaneous right now. And, you know, Ceres is connected to the harvest and agriculture and just the health and abundance of the earth. And we are seeing right now big disruptions to fertilizer and to food systems. I mean, the wheat harvest is the worst that's been since the 1970s. So just interesting how we're seeing this cycle with Mercury, the Sun, and Ceres there, exactly as some of these themes are starting to unfold in the constellation of Taurus, which is connected to the earth and food and abundance and prosperity and more. Very interesting. Close by is Uranus, the planet of disruption and change. So you see how this all starts to work together. Just wanted to point that out for you. So that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody. I have been your host, Stefan Burns. Please smash that thumbs up button to help the channel grow. Subscribe to stay up to date on everything that's happening with the Earth energetically. Earthquakes, volcanic activity, geomagnetic storms, severe weather, the connections between all of those. Also with the sun, solar activity, space weather, planetary alignments and planetary resonances, interstellar cosmic forces, consciousness. We cover a lot here. I break it down. I release videos almost daily. I do live streams all the time. Love to see you here. I also have a clips channel that's linked in my video description where I do short form videos, usually less than 10 minutes. So thank you all. Have a great day, a great weekend. Happy new moon. Happy Mercury cazimi. All the things. It's a really incredible energetic moment right now in time, so enjoy it for what it's worth. We do have this G1 storm. Make sure you just, get some rest, relax where you can, sleep, eat good food, go outside, do some grounding, have fun, live life, and I'll see you all in the next video.